Okay, I have one more set of contributions, but I'm saving that for tomorrow. So today I'm going to give you some observations about the past year and some predictions, some of which may be a bit flippant. You'll have to decide which ones they are. I'm Grannyopteryx. All right. So I have some notes here. This time I'm speaking from notes. And the first prediction I'm going to make is about Ukraine. Some of you will have noticed that Ukraine has changed its national celebration of the Christmas holiday to December the 25th, the more to coincide with the European one, which they hope to have closer relations with, although the situation isn't looking too good. And America is being really, really naughty about helping them. I'm glad to see that that the European Union, the various countries, are stepping up to the mark now. It took them a while, especially Germany, but now really doing good stuff. So that's good. You all know about a little glitch from our Nightmare of London, Sadiq Khan, who was going to send a lot of scrappage, or who was asked to send a lot of cars that were being scrapped because of the ultra low emission zone, and he was supposed to be sending them to Ukraine, and then he suddenly discovered he couldn't do it. There was some legal problem in the way, which is of course a load of nonsense, and I'm hoping that our government will get that sorted out, but who knows. The point is, Sadiq Khan isn't on the side of Europe. That's for sure. Not on the side of Ukraine, not on the side of London. You wonder what side he is on. But I digress. Ukraine has changed its celebration of Christmas to December the 25th instead of the Russian Orthodox celebration, which is on January the 7th. Now, I don't think it will take them too long after a while. Maybe not this year, when the hostilities are over one way or the other, that they will change their alphabet as well. Now, that's going to be a lot more difficult because the Ukrainian alphabet is something in which a lot of historical documents were written as well. So that's a problem if they change to the Latin alphabet. But I think what will happen is they'll make it one of those things where you could use either alphabet. And they'll teach both alphabets in school, but they'll probably take inspiration from Poland. They changed their alphabet from the Cyrillic to the Latin. And I think Ukraine will have the two of them for a while. And then, you know, after some years, maybe I won't see it, but they'll switch entirely to Latin. That's my prediction. That is actually a prediction, not an observation. I believe there will be a peace pact between Israel and Saudi. I think a lot of Arab lands are really embarrassed by what happened. They may not have that much sympathy for Israel, but the governments, the more educated people, I think they really are embarrassed, mainly because it's shown the hand of their particular religion a bit too early. I'm not saying that they don't feel like they should be doing that, but I think they realise the cat got out of the bag too early. So I think there will be a peace pact, if not one that's actually signed, a de facto one. You know, there's some sort of legal fiction that it'll be like this, it won't be formalised until hostilities are over with Gaza or until the thing is settled. But in effect, that's what it'll be. And there will be better and deeper formal relationships between India and Israel. I think India are being got at by Pakistan and under threat from both Pakistan and China. I think they will see some use in making use not only of the Israelis' talent for creating novel defense systems, but also because they're on the Mediterranean. This will give them a sort of link to the Mediterranean, which I think India needs. There's this little problem of Iran in between them, but we'll see how that pans out. Now, fourth prediction, which I don't think anyone will give me any prizes for, is that Putin will be elected the next president. Now, here is a presidential hopeful called Ekaterina Duntsova, and she put a name forward as a peace candidate and was disallowed because of spelling mistakes in her application. Isn't that strange? And I've noticed how similar that is to the problems Trump is having. He's not being allowed to run for president in some states because Trump. That will cause some serious social upheaval, I think. It's going to cause a lot of troubles. But how the dictatorship of Putin and the dictatorship of the left in America are starting to look so much like each other, it's a bit of a creepy coincidence, isn't it? And whatever happens, if Trump is elected, the first thing he's going to do is shut down the UNRWA. There's stuff coming out now that there is aid going in to Gaza, which is immediately being stolen from the mouths of the starving Gazans into the bellies of the very well-fed Hamas people, and it's being facilitated by UNRWA. That can't last. Right. Now, to Britain, there is going to be an election, and it will result in a hung parliament. It won't result in a... Now, this is the danger. I am going to say it won't result in a sweeping victory for Labour. And what it will result in is chaos. There'll be a lot of chaos with whether it wins with a large majority or not. Labour will be torn apart as the left try to seize power. And I think Starmer will try and mollify them by instituting taxes and by applying to rejoin the EU. And nothing will happen. We will be paralysed for a few years until, say, the Reform Party takes over from the Conservatives, or the Conservatives get their act together enough that, well, I don't know. I wouldn't trust them, even if they do promise to stay out of the EU and stop inheritance tax and all the rest of it. Yeah, who can trust those guys? Oh, yeah, and stop the boats. And I'm interrupting myself to remind you I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds, also Twitter and Gab. All the links are in the description, as are links to donation sites. I'm very grateful for donations, and some of you have been very generous, and I do thank you for that. But if you don't want to donate, really, the best thing you can do for this video and my channel is click like, and it doesn't cost you a bean. And I very much appreciate all those likes. Okay. Oh, yes. And of course, when you've clicked like, please subscribe and share. Remember, YouTube's a bit iffy about keeping subscriptions going, so just check that out. Okay, you know what? I think a lot of the big, what we used to call public schools, stuff like Eton and Harrow and those, they are going to be taxed out of existence if the Labour Party gets in. Now, you can say they are bastions of privilege, but the fact is that they are also... ideals of excellence. And you may say, well, everybody's got to be the same. That's how a socialist would look at it. And what I would say is, if you have a point to which to aspire, that's good too. And they were, and still are to a certain extent, although, yeah, they're getting a bit woke as well. But yes, they're going to try and tax these private schools out of existence, if not taxing the schools by reducing their charitable status or abolishing it altogether, by taxing the parents so they can't afford this anymore. I mean, if Labour gets in, it's going to be a complete disaster. The only problem is that people look at the Conservative Party and think, well, What do they have to offer? They are really proven liars. So, yeah, that's a problem. Right, war. Now, we have had so many wars since the American Democrat government got in, and that's because it's a weak government. I don't think Russia would have tried, well, after Afghanistan. I mean, the Democrat government administration of Biden has caused hundreds and thousands, if not millions, of deaths. It started with Afghanistan, that embarrassing debacle, and I don't think Russia would have tried invading Ukraine with a stronger government. If Trump had been in power, I don't think Russia would have tried invading, not because Trump's a great man, but because he's unpredictable and you can't tell what he'd do. I think Russia miscalculated with Biden. I think they thought the Biden administration would just hang back, which they didn't do. But that's the impression the Biden government gives. And I suspect that Hamas wouldn't have done that awful attack on October the 7th if they hadn't been given the go-ahead by Iran, which also had the same opinion about America. So, and now what is it? Venezuela is threatening Guyana. And again, because they can see the possibility of a little crack in the door that they can slip through. That's what a weak government does. And what's going to happen is that in the next few years, every small country is going to be arming itself to the teeth. So if you have shares in an armaments company, buy a few more, because your shares are going to go nothing but up. Let's hope that the sort of bombs we're talking about don't go up as well. But yeah, everyone, Ukraine, what was it, Finland, Sweden, of course, Israel, they are going to start arming themselves, developing their own arms industries, because they know they can't rely on the Orbis Terrarum Pax Americae that we've been relying on up to now. The problem is we've all grown very fat and happy not spending our money on a lot of armaments. And now we're going to have to do that. There's going to be a lot more social hardships in all of these countries as we spend our money more on armaments. And everybody's going to be doing that. Now, I just want to make this point. America bankrupted the British Empire because during and after the Second World War, because they thought empire was terrible, bad, and they just wanted to wipe the British Empire away because it was their turn. They thought they could do everything on their own, and they can't. And they could have done with the British outposts in the Far East and Africa and, Aden, places like that. That's the south of the Arabian Peninsula. They forced Britain to close these down by just choking all the money. During the war, treasure ships were going to America from all over the world with British banking assets being sent to America to pay for the so-called Liberty ships. That was a way of bankrupting, they call a war of using banks to bankrupt the banks, not tanks, to shut down the British Empire. And they could have done with some outposts of the British Empire there now, I'm sure. So that's what you might call karma. But unfortunately, no one can sit there and say, well, America deserved all this aggro because they caused the demise of the British Empire when they could have done with it. No, because you see, we're all suffering. We're all suffering because of that. And it was an American experiment that really now has gone hideously wrong. And I think everything's going to fragment now. And as I say, a lot of countries are going to be arming themselves to the teeth. And of course, that means more possibilities for local wars to break out. In other words, history is going to reassert itself, I suppose. Now, there was a proud announcement here. Where is it? Oh, here we are. Claire Coutinho, MP. Britain is the first country in the G20 to halve its carbon emissions. Whoop-de-doo. Well, I really feel good about that. You know, I feel so saintly. I could develop a halo and fly through the ceiling. I found this wonderful little cartoon here from somebody on Twitter. The planet will be so much cooler when Britain finally hits net zero. Okay, I thought that was a wonderful comment. Look at that. All right. Now, let's see. And now we have Nigel Farage's comment on Cleverly. Home Secretary hails lack of channel migrant crossings. Can you imagine that? This guy, the Home Secretary, says, we've got the channel crossings down. Can you imagine the stupidity of that when people's roofs are falling in because of the storms going on? Of course, the channel crossings are going down. Now, actually, this is interesting here, just as a side issue. This was in the Manchester newspaper. It says here, gaming saved my son's life. One resident of Staley Bridge, where there was a tornado. I saw a photograph of it. It was a proper tornado. You could see the column or the spout or whatever it's called. One resident of Staley Bridge, where the tornado ripped apart homes, said that her son's decision to stay up gaming saved his life. Lindsay Moody, a nurse and mother of 4, told how the chimney collapsed onto 21-year-old Jack's bed. The house started to rattle and shake, then all the ceilings just collapsed. We've had to climb out of the house, and this is what we've been left with, she told the Telegraph. There's not much of a house left, and we've lost our belongings. Well, she then said, we were lucky that no one was killed. The chimney took out an internal wall and my son's bedroom. If he hadn't been on his computer chair with wheels, it would probably have killed him. So I assume the wall started to collapse and he was on the chair, so he pushed himself backwards and got out the way. That's what I thought. Mrs. Moody said that rain was falling into the living room, and despite seeing yellow weather warnings on the TV, she did not expect a tornado. Well, nobody expects a tornado, do they? Anyway, a yellow weather warning is not a red weather warning. So here's Cleverly boasting that they cut the migrant dinghies down. That's and of course Farage says you're clearly a moron. No, he isn't a moron. He is actually a very intelligent man. No, but he thinks that the voting public are morons, and that's more to the point, isn't it? All right, that bit reminds me, after the Armada was dissipated by a furious storm, Queen Elizabeth I had some medallions struck to the winds of heaven because they ascribed the defeat of the Spanish Armada to, the intervention of God. Well, I think she had a bit more reason to praise the winds of heaven than Cleverly, because they're taking credit for it. This is a post-religious society, remember. So that's a few observations, a couple of utterly rash predictions. You'll have to call me out on all of those at the end of next year, so hang on to this video. And meanwhile, I'll say, well, it's not quite New Year yet, so I'll speak to you next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Granbow with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com, and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.